James Desiel writes, would you be open to a Western-style film about Obi-Wan in the desert leading up to the original Star Wars?
Okay, I don't like prequels. I mean, I don't like prequels. But look, if you did an Obi-Wan prequel, and I'm not going to be surprised if they do, I'll be there and I will check it out and I'll watch it. Here's the problem you run into, though, with a movie like that about Obi-Wan in the desert. It's the same kind of problem you run into with a Superman movie. Because when you do a Superman movie, you've got to ask the question, who on earth does he fight? And how do we set up something that's a legit threat to Superman? In the Star Wars universe, especially Obi-Wan Kenobi at the height of his powers, what's the problem? What's the problem in the Tatooine desert that Obi-Wan Kenobi cannot deal with and handle? So you would have to get very creative there about coming up with something that could be a legitimate threat to work within the storyline. And if you can do that, then a Western-style Obi-Wan in the desert type of thing, that could be actually really cool. Christian?
I got 2 words for you. Darth Maul. That he is alive and well in the universe, and there still hasn't been a tie-up to his character yet. That is how you do it, because Obi-Wan's still looking for revenge for Qui-Gon. They met in the Clone Wars. It has to happen in the spinoff. I am so down for this. I think it would be so great. I want to see him also defending Luke from the distance. I want to see him looking after Luke in the distance. I want to see other things that he's been doing while he's on Tatooine, learning more about the Force, because by the time we do see Obi-Wan in Episode 4, he's very strong with it. And whatever this first spin-off film might be, if it is this rumor about the Death Star plans, what is his role in that? I mean, probably nothing, but what is he doing during that time? Because it would be essentially around the same time period. It'd have to be in between episodes 3 and 4. Is he aware of the rebellion? All of these things that could lead up, and I'd like to see Ewan McGregor return. So I'm very excited for the possibility, and it's been rumored that it'll happen, so I'm crossing my fingers that it will.
I love Darth Maul. I would love to see him return. I don't think he was utilized properly in the little bit that we saw him in the film universe thus far. But yeah, I don't feel the same way about prequels if done right. I mean, X-Men First Class is one of my favorite ever. And you got to see
there are exceptions.
How they became what we know. And if you do it right, I mean, get Matthew Vaughn to direct Obi-Wan prequel. I'm in. So I think if done right, it can be really well. But if it's a paper thin reasoning for it, of course, it falls apart. Like we saw with some of the films I won't mention because it upsets so many people out there when we bash them. But yeah, I think if done right, there are exceptions, and I'm just excited that the universe is expanding.
Well, also don't forget that we don't know how Obi-Wan found out that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker. We know that they don't meet until Episode 4, but we also know that Darth Vader's causing some stuff when he's during that time period. So Obi-Wan has to be aware of it, and he does find out. So that could also be another storyline inside of his movie.
I'm guessing he can probably still sense that Anakin was still alive.
Yeah. And
then once that, then, oh, look, Emperor's got a right-hand dude. Well, 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, and it would be fun to see, like, him hearing about these things because of the way Rebels sets up some great stuff. The new canon comic books set up some great stuff in these new novels. It all ties in. So I would love to see it.
See, I like Darth Maul too.
Yeah.
I still don't want to see any reference to the prequels whatsoever. That's just me. All right, what's next?
Austin Garrison writes, hey guys, what do you think of the Academy possibly going back to the 5 Best Picture nominees format?
You know what? I'm a little bit torn on this because for those who haven't heard, there are reports out there right now that the Academy is considering going back to a 5 nominees, like every other category. 5 nominees, 5 nominees, 5 nominees. I really enjoyed it when they expanded, because it had brought in a few more pictures to get that nomination, even though, your numbers 7, 8, 6, 5, those films don't have any chance of winning. There were a lot of films nominated for Best Picture this year that we knew had no chance of winning. But it was great that they were able to get that recognition. But at the same time, I also kind of feel like the more you include in that list, the less prestigious the honor is. There's with the fewer nominees, the higher the honor of the nomination. The more nominees, the less the honor of the nominations. We were kind of joking around a little bit. AMC Theaters just did their biggest award, which is the General Manager of the Year award. And this is not to diminish anybody who got nominated for this award, but there were 40 nominees. Or no, it was 48 nominees, right? So I thought, like, how prestigious is it to get this nomination when there are 48 of the nominees? So I'm torn. I like having more films, but I also like the idea of going back to 5 because it increases the honor of the nomination. I'm torn. I have no answer. Christian.
I hate it. I hate that they're going to 5. I think that they should go to 10 and stick at 10 because the difference of, like, let's say the 48 people, I don't know how many people that are doing that job, but there are so many movies. There are so many bad movies. There are so many good movies. There are at least 10 great movies throughout the year, at least 10 great ones, and they deserve to be recognized. Not all of them will win, and not all of them deserve to win, but they should be recognized, all 10 of those, the ones that got nominated this year. And I think you're going to see a lot more snubs, a lot more people saying, well, this should have been this. I mean, Nightcrawler should have been, Nightcrawler, no, it wasn't. It was not in there, and it should have been.
Only screenplay.
And look, and that's after like 8 or 9. They could have fit that into the 10, and it was deserving of it. Should it have won? Probably not. But still, I still think 10 is the right amount to give the movies that really deserve to pull through. I think everything else stays at 5, but stick at 10. 5 is not enough.
Hey, Rose?
I think it all comes down to proportions. Like you said, 48 out of how many? 10 out of hundreds of films. Right. So to me, I know we talk about this a lot. You sometimes say that if they're not really going to have a chance of winning, what's the point? But to them, it's like, yes, people are paying attention to all the efforts that went into this film. But I just don't like the voting system currently. Oh, it could be 7, it could be 6. Just pick 5 or pick 10 and stick with it. I just think that that's silly and skewed. There's always going to be 2 more films that were incredible, that touched a lot of lives, that should be recognized for that fact. Even if they're not going to win, it's a huge honor to be, at the biggest event for film fans. Boom. So I think it should be one or the other.
Now, to play devil's advocate here for a second, is that, let's say you move it to 10, right? Then there are always going to be arguments about that 11th film. There are still going to be arguments. You could make it 15, and then there will be arguments and snub accusations about the film that was in 16th, 17th, and 18th should have been in the top 15. It's like those arguments are going to be there no matter how many films you nominate.
Yeah, but I also think if you cut it down to just 5, all you're going to see is biopics, and you're not like, it's going to diminish the chance of any of the big blockbuster movies ever get nominated. It's hard enough for them. Like Return of the King is the last one you think of the genre kind of fantasy films to be nominated. I think that's just going to eliminate the chances altogether if you go just to 5.
Although one thing in its favor is the final year that they did 5 only nominations. The last year they did it before they expanded it out, and I think the following year they had 9, was the year of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And had they had 10 nominees that year, you would have had the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight as a Best Picture nominee.
Better have been.
That's what I mean.
It probably was 6th. I mean, it probably would have been in the 6th spot. So there's an argument to be made there for that too. All right, what's next?
Calderon XXO writes, who do you think is going to tie with Katharine Hepburn first, Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep?
Great question.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Because Daniel Day-Lewis, every time he's in a film, you make the argument that he should win the Oscar. Like it just go. That's just automatic. He's in it. He probably deserves to win. And so I think he's got like a 2.5 to 1 ratio. For every 2.5 movies he's in, he wins Best Actor. I mean, that's an insane ratio. Yeah. That's how good this guy is. However, he needs to step up a little bit his productivity. Whereas you get Samuel L. Jackson, who appears in 73 films a year. You get Daniel Day-Lewis, who does like 1 film every like 3 years.
But man, are they good.
But man, are they good and worth watching.
But Meryl Streep has the most amount of nominations to date. Yes. And if she's in a movie, she's nominated.
She's nominated,
So I think that's a really interesting question.
It's a great question.
But you're right. Daniel Day-Lewis, he only takes those roles. Into the Woods, where I enjoyed it more than some because I grew up on Sondheim and his music. A lot of people are like, she shouldn't have been nominated and blah, 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 blah. And I'd rather have Renee Russo been nominated, no question. But she's in it. She is class. She's everything that this industry stands for. She's a legacy, but so is Daniel. So I think that's an interesting question.
I'll be the unpopular one here. Everybody knows I came out of Nightcrawler talking about Renee Russo. I actually thought Meryl Streep deserved the nomination over Renee Russo. I did. Anyway, I know this is the unpopular opinion.
Yeah, for me, Russo also. But what I will say, as far as your point with him not being as productive, that's why he gets nominated all the time. Yeah. Because he lives in the role. Like he was Lincoln at his house.
So method.
He lives in the role. But that's also why I think the Street Monster will be the one who she's a monster. She's a monster because she every time whatever she's in, she nails it. Like even though I don't agree she should have been nominated, she was phenomenal.
She was. She's
always
really good.
She's great. She does a lot more movies, so I think that she will eventually do it. But Daniel Day-Lewis, even though he will win next time he's nominated, but it's just he does like one every like 2 or 3 years. So just because of number wise, I think Streep's got him.
And Redmayne is creeping up. He's doing The Danish Girl, which screams Academy, and he just won this last year. I would not be surprised if he's nominated again. So he's young, but he's creeping up there.
Well, one.
I'm just saying.
Put 3 on his mental, then let's have that conversation.
But someone would have said that about Tom Hanks when he went boom, boom, and then Tom Hanks is, he hasn't won one in a long time.
He also hasn't been in a lot of things.
He's got like 5 nominations.
I'm just saying, being as young as Redmayne is, let's have this conversation when he's the age of these actors.
I remember having that same conversation about Cuba Gooding Jr.
That's true.
Show me the money.
It'll happen.
All right. Do we have another one?
We do have another one.
One more Twitter question.
Bradass TV writes, generally, it seems almost everyone hates Indiana Jones 4. How in the world did it get a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes?
I honestly think there are a couple of reasons for this. It's the same kind of reason why, like, I think the reviews for Phantom Menace were really good when they first came out, because everybody was supposed to like it. And I think the Indiana Jones thing came out, and I think everybody was supposed to like it. But I will also say this. This is what I said coming out of the theater the first time I saw Crystal Skull, which ironically enough, I was sitting beside Larry King for. I was sitting with Larry King at the first screening of Crystal Skull at Paramount Studios. I came out, and this is what I said to the buddy who came with me. I said, you know what? That was a very decent hero action adventure movie. It just wasn't Indiana Jones. And that's what I said. But I said, if you took the name Indiana Jones off that title,
it's The Mummy,
and you had, Burt Feathercap and the Adventures of the Crystal Skull.
Great name.
Burt Feathercap. You had Emma Watson and the Adventures of the Crystal Skull. It's actually not a bad little hero action adventure movie, but as an Indiana Jones movie, it totally felt out of place and was subpar for the name. It wasn't worthy of the name. And that's why I think, those are the 2 reasons why I think it got the instant reaction that it got. And that's just my opinion. I know there's going to be a lot of different opinions. I might even think differently tomorrow when you ask me again. I know, Amy Rose, why do you think the critic ratings were so high for it?
I really have no answer for that, but I feel the same way. If they didn't have it under the blanket, because Indiana Jones tonally was very different. But as a film separating it, Cate Blanchett, all that madness, it had a recipe for success. It just missed the mark for me. I felt the same way about the Bourne franchise. A lot of people like Legacy a lot more than I did. But to me, it was so far inferior to the 3 films with Matt Damon that I was like, don't throw Bourne on, just make it a separate franchise with Jeremy Renner, and I would have enjoyed it more because the plot was just so much weaker, So to me, sometimes it's actually doing a disservice when you attach that big, beautiful franchise we all love so much, like you're saying with the prequels. So yeah, 78%. It really is quite interesting.
It's funny though too, because Mark and I got certified on Rotten Tomatoes about 2.5 years ago, and I didn't really know how the system worked. And the way it works is if you give something, let's at like 3 out of 5 stars, right?
That's a positive.
If you give 3, that's a positive. So even if you were like you said, it wasn't a great Indiana Jones movie, but it was a fine adventure film. Totally. And everyone said that. If everyone felt that it was just okay, but good enough, you see that 75, 80%, and you go, oh, everyone thinks it's great because it's got 80% or whatever too. Most of those people, I mean, now look, everybody could have thought it was great when they first saw it, and that's why it happened. But don't always think because it's got that big high score that everyone was raving about it. They might have just passed the mark. People just aren't aware that that's how Rotten Tomatoes works. Now, I totally agree with you. I think that people came out of Indiana Jones and for respect of Spielberg and respect of the franchise, they said, yeah, it was fine. It was fine. And then they thought on it for a bit. And like if they re-rated it, I bet you it would drop significantly.
Hey everyone, if you like this video, click that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and helps you stay up to date with all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC movie talk show. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with all of our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.